Okay, so that is one of the top stories we're focusing on. Deputy President William Ruto there saying, nobody owes me. And he's actually on record saying, guys, even if we get to 2022 and I don't become the president, then I will be content with where I am right now. I've come from very far. But before we have that conversation on Deputy President William Ruto, let me have a conversation with my guests in studio. We have, let me say, Odoyo Owidi on my immediate right, yes. Odoyo Owidi, political analyst, and Gabriel Muthuma as well, political analyst. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me this morning.
Thanks,
How are
Linda,
you?
for having us.
I'm very well, Linda.
You okay?
It's a long time since I saw you. I thought I would find you bigger.
Okay, listen, so before we have a conversation about Deputy President William Ruto and saying that nobody owes him anything, I want us to have a conversation about, first of all, do you want to say a word or two about school unrest? Both of you are parents, you have students in school. Muthuma?
I'm not only a parent.
What?
I used to be a teacher. You need to know that detail.
Okay, so 2 seconds. What's going on in schools? How do we sort this thing out?
First of all, we are classifying this as arrests in schools. There's nothing like that. This is simple arson.
Thank you.
Done by just a handful. Yeah. Students are in class, studying, and the dome is on fire. And then, finally, you find 2 suspects. So we are looking for the wrong things in the wrong places for the wrong reasons.
Okay.
2, majority of the decisions made in schools are being made by political leaders, many of who do not even qualify to be teachers for primary schools. And then they make these decisions. The other time they came up with this idea that prefects are being elected.
That's democracy.
It is not about democracy. It is like electing policemen and chiefs. We can't do that.
Why?
Because they are supposed to be, they are nyaparas, so to say. It is the prefects who is supposed to inform the teachers, this boy is doing this, these ones are making noise, these ones seem to be planning something. You see that? And they are supposed to take, the first line of punishment must come from the prefects themselves. But if the students are now allowed to elect who is more popular in the school, even when he doesn't have any administrative energy in him, we can't do that.
And seriously, when you talk about, and I agree with Awidi, when you talk about social decadence, honestly, where are students getting kerosene
They are
to burn
buying.
schools? They are buying. From who?
From around the community.
Who in their right mind would sell kerosene to a student?
Trust me, Muthuma, we've done stories where they go out of their schools and they actually buy.
Exactly. Any rightful thinking gas attendant or petrol station attendant would not sell paraffin to a student. And so that's why when Awidi says it has taken a political angle where you have politicians wanting to run schools, we have a ministry that is actually coming with very good policies, all right? And at the same time, we have criminal elements. When Awidi said it's arson, it's criminal. I support him 110%.
So you agree with the DCI?
Of course.
Yes,
of course. These are people who should, I mean, there are consequences, obviously. And, you know, just because somebody does not want to sit for an exam, just because there's an anxiety, just because, you know, a school management does not want to go through an audit query, you result into banning the school, that is criminal. The Ministry of Education does not have the capacity to investigate. So who or what do? They go and they collaborate with the DCI, they create synergy, and criminal, you know, becomes a punishable in our land. You know, criminality is a punishable offense.
Okay, so according to both of you, there's no two way about this.
No,
these are criminals.
You see,
and
this,
that's
Linda, this thing of sanitizing, and I've heard what Amos was saying, and honestly, I so move away from that mentality, because a school to me is an incubator of one, behavior, discipline, character, you know, and it is where we raise the standards of morality. It's a part of an area where we raise the standard of morality of a nation. Yes, parenting comes into play as well, but a school, all right, should be treated with a lot of seriousness, just the way a parent, you know, treats the value and also the behavior of a child. So when criminal aspects come into the school environment, they should be treated just as such.
As such. Okay.
And Linda, I think we should be looking for who is behind all this.
Of course.
And this is the most
there has to
unfortunate
be
bit.
somebody
This is
more
not the first
powerful
time we're
behind
seeing
it.
this.
Sorry?
Yeah.
This is not the first time we're seeing this. The school unrest. We had a couple last year. They always happen.
Yeah.
It's always like a cycle of
Exactly.
some sort.
Yes.
Exactly. But what we cannot do, we cannot create it as a psyche and say, you know, just because it happens, you know, I know for sure the ministry is doing all it can to understand how does it, you know, what is happening? What do we need to do? As they are playing their ball, we also need to play ours. We need to ask, where do we arrest this situation? And if that means involving the DCI and putting measures, like the one thing you're running away from,
What am I running
you know,
away from?
the issue of putting it in your living school certificate. If you are,
But my argument is this.
you see, Linda,
What?
it is, it's a criminal offense. It's arson, punishable by law.
Okay.
It doesn't matter whether you are a young
Whether you're a
person
minor or not.
No. Remember, last year, I think in Moi Girls,
Yeah.
people died.
Yeah, yeah.
And for somebody to tell us just because they were a student, they can no. It needs to be part of your history.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have two parents in studio who are
Yeah.
saying these are
No,
criminal
it-
elements. It needs to be dealt with as such.
As the Ministry of Education, I mean, we have now we have a very able. I'm not saying we didn't have back then. Now we have a very able CS. And she's doing a great job. We need to support her as much as possible. We need to remove the aspect of politics, as Awidi is saying, because, I mean, at the end of it, we've seen where, you know, at some point where politics comes into play and
Okay.
convolutes a lot of things in our education system.
Okay, we need to let that rest. We need to
That
let
said, at the end of the day, arson is a criminal
Arson is
activity.
arson. I mean,
of
this is-
course,
this is the
of
criminal
course. Let
elements
people be
listed in
punished.
them as-
And I'm glad, and I'm so glad that the Ministry of Education are in collaboration with the DCI. Let them do their job.
Okay.
Send
Nice.
these goons to prison.
So can we? All right, fine. So let's move away from the school unrest and talk about that story that Murimi Mwangi just did. Now we're shifting our attention to politics. So you have former Prime Minister Raila Odinga just having lots of diplomatic engagements. As Murimi did mention, he was in India, he was in South Africa. He's part of the team that is brokering the peace deal in South Sudan. Kavins, talk to me about this new role that Raila Odinga right now has and why people are saying probably it could be causing jitters within Jubilee.
First of all, look at Raila Odinga. His age, his experience, his knowledge, his calmness these days. Definitely, the job he's doing today had to be done by someone. And even a Standard 2 will tell you the best person to do it would be Raila in the current political dispensation, in the current country, Kenya. The job Raila is doing befits him that I don't think anybody should complain. Anybody complaining has other ulterior motives, but not really for something good for Kenya. Raila Odinga is the best to do the job he's doing because of his experience and his knowledge and everything else, I would say.
Murimi's story, there are individuals who are a little bit uncomfortable with that, especially within the Jubilee Party.
Because they are simply convergent thinkers. The only thing they are focusing on today is how they become president in 2022. Anything good for Kenya, they don't want. In fact, they don't even want lifestyle audit because it may interfere with their 2022. They don't want Raila to do what he's doing because it gives him a limelight, and they don't want a formidable opponent then, if he would be. So there's nothing they want except their 2022 office.
Or maybe they just want someone to come out clear and say, this is Raila Odinga, this is the role we are giving him, this is what he will do from now on, henceforth, because it's not yet clear.
Every time Raila Odinga is going to do that, somebody says he's going to do that. And that is how we get to know that he is going to do that. We don't have to make things so official every other day. So I don't think anybody should complain about what Raila Odinga is doing today.
Muvuma.
Well, experience notwithstanding.
Yeah.
I'm liking the new. I'm liking the new morphing that Raila is now. He's taken the shape of a statesman. But again, when we talk about experience, let's not forget this gentleman was the former prime minister. All these connections were there. So he does actually have an upper hand, you know, when dealing with conflict. We've seen him attend several elections within the continent where he's gone in as an observer. So true to the fact that he has that emblem of being a statesman. So when he's called in as an elder, and he fits that bill very well. And I agree with Awid when he says, you know, given the age, Are they somebody who can sit down with the likes of Salva Kiir?
Mashar, have a conversation.
And actually tell them, you know, I've actually been in the same place you people are, and this is the direction that I took, and we had peace. So he brings in a lot of experience when he can sit down with waging factions.
Okay.
When you see him go to a place like India and represent the government, take it from the cue that he has a lot of inside dealings from when he was the prime minister. So it's not bad when such a position is extended to him, and one that actually has brought the calm that we are seeing. I don't think it would be nice to read so much into it at this juncture. Let him, if Jubilee agrees to give him that role, I know there could be, you know, some murmurs within Jubilee that why are we giving him this, why are we giving him that? But it's a small price to pay, honestly, for the peace that we are experiencing, you know, to continue to hold fort. I think that's a small price to pay. And it's not that the man cannot do it. He's been able to do it time and again.
He's actually capable of doing that.
He's very capable of doing it. I mean, we've seen, I mean, who would have, and I'm not saying they won't respect the leadership of President Uhuru Kenyatta or Deputy William Ruto, but his age when he sits down with these two gentlemen in South Sudan really brings in an element of sobriety, so to speak.
People listen to him.
They will listen. They will listen.
Okay, so that is Raila Odinga and his new diplomatic engagement. That was, by the way, we're looking at House of Cards. But right now, I want us to take a look at a story focusing on Deputy President William Ruto, who now says that no one owes him any political debt. His sentiments come in the wake of a debate on the perceived obligation by Central Kenya to support his presidential bid after he backed President Uhuru Kenyatta in the 2013 and 2017 presidential election. Take a look at this story.
The race to the 2022 presidential election is already on, and one man, Deputy President William Ruto, has his sights firmly on the country's top job, at least according to his troops. But Ruto, who backed President Uhuru Kenyatta in the 2013 and 2017 elections, is arguably not getting full support for his quest from President Uhuru Kenyatta's Central Kenya base.
And while speaking about debt, I know there's been debate about who owes who what in the public domain.
But Ruto says his support for the president was not a political debt and no one owes him anything.
No person, no community, no section of Kenya owes anybody, including myself, anything.
A major split in Jubilee has partly been blamed on the support for Ruto, with his close allies accusing leaders from Central Kenya of championing plans to abandon the deputy president in the race to State House.
The only other debt that we have is those of us who've been elected. We have the debt of ensuring that our commitments are fulfilled for the transformation of our country.
The deputy president was speaking at the All Saints Cathedral, where he donated 8 million shillings towards the construction of a children and teen center. And Ruto is getting to know his 2022 opponents already.
Kila mtu ako uwanjani. Weta ako uwanjani. Mheshimiwa Ruto ako uwanjani. Sijui nani ako uwanjani. Nimeona wengine juzi na Peter Kenneth, kuna wengine. Raila hatujui kama amestaafu au anataka kutafuta njia ya kurudi.
Rita Tinina, KTN News.
Okay, nobody owes me anything. And he's also on record saying, if we get to 2022 and I'm not the president, it's fine. I'm happy with where I am right now. I've come a long way. So Deputy President there on 2022 and whether or not anyone owes him anything. Quick one, Kavins Owide, Deputy President says no one owes me.
Linda, it is very obvious that Ruto was going to say that at one time or the other. It has just come a little earlier. Because when you look at history, this thing was not going to be in his favor, that he clings onto the fact that somebody owes him something for supporting someone. Because there can only be, this debt can only be in two ways. Either President Uhuru himself, in his own personal capacity, owes him something, or the Kikuyu community owes the Kalenjin community something.
Okay.
Now, let's start with the community. Remember, we have had 3 Kikuyu presidents. And in each of those cases, some son of Kenya somewhere has backed them up to get to that office. Starting with Jomo. We all know what Jaramogi said about Jomo. It is all clear that without Jaramogi's effort, maybe Jomo would have not been the president. Does the Kikuyu community or Jomo's, or Odinga's community anything? No. Coming fast forward to Kibaki, Raila Odinga publicly said Kibaki tosha. And Kibaki is Kikuyu and Raila is Luo. Does the Kikuyu community or Luo anything up to now? So if Ruto was going to bank on this, it meant that first things first, first debts first. They would have to pay Jomo's debt before they pay for their son Kibaki. Then they would think about President Uhuru Kenyatta's debt. But if it were to be individual capacity, remember these people sat together and they say, we need the presidency. In the presidency, there are 2 seats, the president and the deputy. I am the top one, so you take the deputy. Isn't he getting a share of that bargain?
Okay.
And when they got to the office, I am sure DP brought some of his people to be put in government. And the president also brought his. So he got his share of the bargain.
So
Kenyans have realized that in the event that President Uhuru Kenyatta now wants to back Ruto for the presidency, what will be in store for President Uhuru Kenyatta? What will he get for supporting Ruto? Ruto is going to get support to be president for having supported Uhuru. But if Uhuru supports him now, what will Uhuru get? There will be no DP for Uhuru. So what will happen?
Gentleman's agreement,
And also, in the event that we get another Kikuyu to deputize Ruto, will Ruto support him in 2032? You see, this nonsense we have to. So this is the sense.
This way is a little bit convoluted, but there are 2 ways you look into it.
Okay.
One, obviously, is the political aspect that you're talking about. You know, I gave you support, and in turn, you and your kinsmen, your tribe, your whole community should give me support. That's one way we can look at it. But I don't think that's what the Deputy President is talking about. And the debt I want us to talk about, really, because that's what's making sense to me and you, Linda, and everybody else. And actually, the core Kenyan. The debt that you're talking about is that we elected you. So you owe us.
Yeah, he actually said the only debt we have is development.
Exactly.
Let's focus on development.
We elected you and every other leader on the guise of a certain promise that you are going to do this for us. You're going to improve our quality of life. You're going to bring hospitals. You're going to give us an education, that is meaningful. You're going to the whole 9 yards. So it's actually us, the mwananchi, who should actually be talking about the debt. And when the leaders talk about the debt, as the Deputy President has put it, is we promised you, and this debt that you gave us this power, we owe it to you in this way. One, and he said it sometime, I think, in Meru, if I'm not, in Tharaka-Nithi. He said, in matters education, when you're talking about TVETs and things like that, we are rearranging the way we've done in matters education. Healthcare, all right? The Big Four agenda. We're talking about electricity. We're talking about roads. We're talking about the SGR. Those are the promises we need to be talking about. That's the kind of debt we need to be talking. That should be the engagement that we should be pushing further. If we go to the tribal cocoons and the tribal element, we've always done a very bad job, Linda, when we read in our tribal directories. That is how we ended up in 2007, 2008. And for every rightful thinking leader to be talking or insinuating that this community owes me or that community owes me, I think is driving us backwards.
Well, that's an ideal situation, but then you do realize that is what essentially should happen, but it is not.
Linda, me and you should fight. And wait here, we should fight, you see, that narrative, because it's very skewed. Anytime we say, okay, because I supported Widi this time, and, I supported him to make promise to the mwananchi. So as we talk about this debt, where is this mwananchi? All right? Why can't we boomerang our ideas to this man? This is the man who put us here in the first place. You know? So really, the DP is the one talking that narrative. And we should support him on that. When he says nobody owes me,
Should leave it at that.
we should leave it at that and say, okay, Mr. Deputy President, that's a very good statement, but what do you mean by that? And then he explains, like the way he explained it, and it made perfect sense. If, by the way, he was to push it in that direction, that debt, you would actually make him president without you people knowing.
Okay, so as we speak, let's forget about this. You who owes who, what, where. Let's
Because
just move on.
what me and you, Linda, are concerned about is the workability of the promise. Has it worked? Because at the end of 5 years, me and Owidi will sit with a pen and paper and question all leadership. You told us this. You did not fulfill it.
Do you ever
told
do
us
that? Do we ever do that?
Of course we
As
do.
a country.
Let me tell you. And a place that has done that is actually in two places.
Where?
You see, in Rift Valley, people are keen of that. You see, in Central, don't play around with those guys.
Oh, so we're the deliverer, that's it.
They remove everybody. Gone. Because of the promises you made and you did nothing. Absolutely.
Okay, so it
We
has...
can do that. We can do that. Remember what somebody said.
What?
Remember what somebody, and I love this. They said, democracy thrives in an environment where the electorate is informed.
That's true.
Once you get informed, Linda, we must know how to pick the slack and say, our way of how we give leadership must actually come from a place of information that if I'm putting you to power, I'm expecting you to deliver that which you promised to me. And failure to which, just like in any employment environment, that if you do not deliver, I don't have a chance to put you back in that office again. The minute we start understanding this,
That's it.
instead of doing what we currently do, which is you run for the person who is running a big acclamation. Linda, if 400,000 people come to us and tell us you are the governor of Nairobi, and really and they tell us you are wise, and to the effect you are as silly as they come, 400 people are shouting in the street, you are the one. Does that make you wise? Really? Does it?
Oide, listen, let's look at how Deputy President William Ruto has handled issues politically in the last couple of weeks. One, with utterances that put President Uhuru Kenyatta on the spot, quote-unquote, the Tanga narrative. And then now Deputy President coming out and says, nobody owes me. And he says he's willing to work with anyone and everyone. That was when he was in Western Kenya. There are those analysts who say he is the master of politics. He knows what he's doing. And there's a specific reason why he's doing this, saying nobody owes me. He knows the cards he's putting on the ground.
I also know why he's doing all that he's doing. First of all, we are assuming here in Kenya that Ruto has started to campaign for 2022. Me, you, and everyone else know there is nobody who is rich enough, who is strong enough, and is capable of campaigning for 4.5 years non-stop. The campaign that DP is doing today in the whole republic is not campaign to beat his opponent in 2022. He doesn't even know him. The campaign today is to get him what portion of Jubilee will he take when Jubilee splits. He's campaigning for his portion of Jubilee. You notice that the last function the DP went to, he wore his original URP yellow. So what is happening today is Jubilee is destined for imminent split. So he's campaigning to run away with a large chunk of it. He's actually recruiting new members of his yet-to-be-known new party. So President Ruto DP President is not campaigning for 2022. Actually, if you listen to some of his statements, like last evening I listened to him, he says, when a poor man gets money, he's stolen.
He's stolen.
And when a rich man does, it is because of his father.
Yeah.
Very dangerous statement. Very dangerous statement. And you see, this guy, the way I know him, he's very militant. Don't expect him that he will spare Kenyatta because he's the president. He has pulled back his sleeves. He's ready for war. He's definitely not campaigning for 2022. He's definitely not launching any development projects. He doesn't need to launch them to take place.
Odie, have you seen the deputy president? He's always on roads, on
Those
Sorry?
roads will be constructed without them being launched. Please.
I like the direction
Okay.
Owidi has taken. But Linda, seriously, the last time we were here, I told you Jubilee can only survive, or Jubilee can only be able to implement their mandate if three things happen. One of them is the unity within the party.
How unified are they right now?
Well, right now they have issues. That one I'll tell you off the deck. They have issues, and how they go around or how they go about into managing those issues, we have to wait and see how they'll do it. But if they are able to manage them and do a good job at it, just to ensure that the party continues, I think they'll have crossed actually that hurdle. Having said that, the second thing that they must be able to do for any succession to be talked about within Jubilee is that they must achieve their party manifesto and their big four. I mean, these are game changers. These programs are huge, serious, big changes that every common mwananchi will want for a person coming in to continue with that kind of work. Thirdly, and most important, is their fight on corruption. If they're able to achieve those, with the unity of the party being one of them, you heard yesterday in one of the broadcasts where the deputy president was being interviewed, you heard him say, only a very foolish, maybe, he didn't use that word, but that's probably what he meant. Only a very foolish and silly politician would move out of Jubilee at this point, or to go start another party. Because you know what? They've built this party and injected a lot of work in it that it's the only big, huge party that has a succession plan.
Okay.
No, seriously, Jubilee is the only party that has a
That
succession
seems to have a succession
plan.
plan.
Yes, some will come out in the future, but for now, any rightful thinking politician would not go and get into another party. But that's not to mean that it cannot be divided.
Okay.
Any other coalition coming in, the first homework that they have is to divide Jubilee.
Great. People, you're watching News Center. Thank you for staying with us. Owidi and Mudhuma, please stay with me because I need us to look at a different story where the deputy president was in Western. And that will inform part of the conversation we'll have in terms of the clamor for leadership in Western Kenya. But let's take a break. We'll be right back.
This is KTN News.